Yeah.
Representative Ward, Senator, always good to see you as well. Thank you all for being here today to honor our fallen heroes that have gone before us. It's truly a privilege to be with you here today as we honor Americans, fallen heroes. It's appropriate when we take this time to reflect upon the sacrifices of our fellow Americans have made so that we may be free. Across the country today, throughout the weekend, we're going to go to cookouts, we're going to the lake, we're going to be fishing, we're going to be at the beach. We're going to be relaxing. Those that have gone before us, Lord, that's the way it should be. However, at the forefront of our minds today, this should be what Memorial Day is really all about. Memorial Day is special. It is a day, a year that Americans reserve for honoring those that made the ultimate sacrifice so that we may be free to enjoy this weekend, all weekends. In fact, every day that we are blessed to live in this great country. Today is a day to remember for what others have done for us. Americans who have fought and died in this country so that we may be protected and prosper. We thank God for giving us men and women like these who knowingly have gone into harm's way, even though they may not be. In November of 1863, in the middle of the Civil War, a war that had torn this country apart, President Abraham Lincoln went to the battlefield where nearly 8,000 men were killed and 27,000 were wounded. And he delivered his Gettysburg Address. In his brief remarks that day, 4 months after this great battle, that historians consider the turning point that actually restored this great nation of ours, President Lincoln said, "The way to honor these dead who die on battlefields is to increase our devotion to their cause." He said, "It is rather for us to be here, dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to the cause for which they gave their last full measure of devotion. That we here highly resolve, these dead shall not have died in vain. That this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom, and that the government by it, for the people, shall not perish on this earth." Lincoln made this remark at a time of great peril of our country. At the end of the war, the Union was restored, but at the cost of nearly 600,000 American lives. The first Memorial Day was proclaimed on May 5th, 1868, by General John Logan, and it was first observed on May 30th, 1868. It was observed with the placement of flowers in the graves of Union and Confederate soldiers. 81 years later, June 1944, during another time of great peril for our nation, American soldiers stormed the beaches of Normandy, France. Thousands died, thousands more were wounded. Our soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines free to conquer. By August of 1945, the Empire of Japan was also defeated, and the world once again took a deep, fresh breath of freedom. That's what Americans do. Americans confront when we see it and we defeat it. We shouldn't kid ourselves, though. Evil is very patient and lies in wait to exploit any weakness of those who are weak. We, as a free nation, must always be vigilant and let our strength also be our shield. In the years that followed World War II, America helped rebuild Europe and Japan. Americans do that too. Americans are good people. They're generous people. We are people. Americans have a history of coming to the aid of others, sometimes at the expense of our own needs and priorities. Our country has sacrificed much so that others may live in freedom and liberty. The Americans we honor today have paid that ultimate price. The least we can do is remember them, thank them, honor their memories for their selfless sacrifice. Today is a day for us. Each of us here today should remember those who have gone before us, our family members, our loved ones, our neighbors, our friends, who, when their country called, were there and gave all they had, their lives. Our nation has been built on acts of heroism and sacrifice. Just last week, We honor those that died serving with the Merchant Marine. In this particular harrowing and touching incident involved a convoy of 3 ships and 3 Coast Guard cutters passing through Torpedo Alley, some 100 miles off the coast of Greenland at about 1 a.m. in the morning, February 3rd, 1943. The submarine U-223 fired a volley of 3 torpedoes. One of it hit the midsection of the Dorchester, the U.S. Army transport ship with more than 900 men on board. Ammonia and oil were everywhere in the fast-sinking vessel and upon the freezing sea. The 4 chaplains on board, 2 Protestant pastors, a Catholic priest, and a Jewish rabbi, were among the first on deck, calming them and handing out life jackets. When they ran out, they took off their own life jackets and placed them upon the waiting soldiers without regard to faith or race. Approximately 18 minutes after the initial explosion, the ship went down. The chaplains were the last seen by witnesses standing arm in arm on the capsized hull of the ship, each praying in their own way for the care of the men.
And you have to be there to turn it off?
Out of 900, 7 were lost at sea.
Okay, I got it.
Making it the 3rd largest loss at sea of its kind in the United States in World War II. Today, there's a stained glass window dedicated to these 4 brave patriots at Fort Snelling in St. Paul. More than 1 million American service members have died on our nation's war and conquest. Beginning with the colonial soldiers, taking up arms in 1775 to fight for our independence over unbelievable odds. For more than 2 centuries, service members have died so that we may live our lives in peace. We take so much for granted. The attention span for many Americans is very short. So quickly we forget to ask of our servicemen and women and families what they are up against. We send our young people off to faraway lands with the intent of securing our safety here at home. We send them to the remotest parts of the world and unfortunately lose focus on why they are there and what they are doing on our behalf. Each of these heroes is paid a great debt. It is a debt, though, that doesn't appear on any balance sheet, nor regrettably can ever be repaid. All we can do is ensure that their sacrifice was not made in vain, and vow that we will continue to carry on the torch of freedom on their behalf. As a grateful nation, we must renew our resolve that their sacrifices will never, ever be forgotten. People ask me many times, they say, what is the toughest part of being a congressman? Well, the answer to that is tragically an easy one for me to answer. The hardest part is trying to find the right words to comfort our father and telling his son is lost. It's heartbreaking. It's an impossible task. We must dedicate ourselves to preserving the dignity and showing the deepest of respect for our fallen soldiers, sailors, and airmen when they return home. President Ronald Reagan once said, speaking of the dead, we must always remember that peace is a fragile thing that needs constant vigilance. We owe them a promise to look in the world with a steady gaze and perhaps a resigned toughness, knowing that we have adversaries in this world and challenges. And the only way to meet them and maintain peace is by staying strong. President's words were summarized as peace through strength. We must stay strong if we truly care about peace. I know that many of you here today are either actively serving or have served. Whether it was during World War II, Korea, Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan, or no matter wherever you served, we thank you for your dedication and service to this great country. In closing, this is our day that we mourn the loss of our men and women in uniform. We will continue to honor them by completing the mission for which they gave their lives, to protect freedom from oppression, and to lay the foundation of peace for the next generation of Americans. Today we pray for those who lie in graves here on foreign soils or in the depths of the ocean. We are unwavering and resolved that their sacrifices will always be remembered by a grateful nation. Thank you again for the kind invitation to be here today. May God continue to bless our fallen heroes. May God continue to bless this great nation. May God continue to bless this home. Thank you.